Another explosion rocks the Dutch town of Zwolle. The sounds of gunfire and screaming are getting closer. Inside the local Gestapo headquarters, 2 German SS officers load their pistols and look at each other nervously. Machine gun and rifle fire fills the night air, punctuated by grenade detonations. The battle is rapidly approaching. The men look at the map, check positions of the city's defenders. They try to figure out where the attack might be coming from, but the radio just crackles with static. There's another concussive blast. The front door of the office is flung open, and in rushes a soldier, his eyes wild, his uniform disheveled. He locks the door, then wheels to face the SS men. The sounds of footsteps and screaming get louder. "What the devil is happening out there?" demands the first officer, pounding his fist on the table. "Yes," says the second. "Speak, man. Where is the attack coming from? How many are there?" The soldier takes a heavy breath. "Just one," he says. "What? Just one man? How can that be?" "We have to run. He's almost here." Hello, and welcome back to Badass of the Week. My name is Ben Thompson, and I am joined today by show producer Andrew Jacobs. Andrew, how are you doing today?
I am good. I'm good. It's a Friday.
Yes.
Ready for the weekend.
Yeah.
Exciting stuff.
Yes. Pat is off in Greece right now. She is currently wandering the halls of the Temple of Apollo at Delphi, which we talked about pretty recently. So
yeah, that's like pretty much the same as how my weekend's gonna go.
Yeah, about the same here.
Wandering the halls of Chuck E. Cheese.
Yes, exactly. Have a wine walk this afternoon on Saturday. That'll be fun.
Oh, I wish. Not that my weekend's not that exciting. Come on now. Yeah.
So we are, I guess I could make some joke about it's a day trip to Canada from here. That could be our transition of it's 3 hours to Vancouver. So I could in theory be going there. So we are going to be talking about Canada today. And we've done a Badass Canadian before. We talked about Klondike Joe Boyle. And last week on the 100th episode, you'd mentioned him being one of your favorite badasses we've done on the show before. So we were talking about what we were going to talk about this week, and it was like, well, are all Canadians this badass?
I mean, Canada's kind of in the news.
Yeah, that's true.
We're by the time this airs in 2 weeks, for all I know, we are going to be ready to invade. So maybe it's worth talking about how badass some of these Canadians are before we go in there and try to cause any more trouble.
Yeah, the Canadians get a reputation, at least in the United States, for being very polite people, but I don't know if you guys watched Four Nations, but if you've ever watched a hockey game, but there is a violent streak there in the Four Nations tournament. The Canadians and the Americans got into 3 fist fights in the first period. So
well, it's funny, as I was preparing to do this episode, I referred back to the article you wrote about this, and you start off the article being like, Canada's in the news this week because we're not friends, we're enemies right now. And it was like, what the? I'm like, wait a minute. Yeah, I'm like, wait a minute, did you write this last yesterday? It's like, no, this is decades ago. Yeah, this was the Olympics.
Yeah, we were playing them in the Olympics. I was there for that. So that Olympic Games was in Vancouver. So I went up for that. And I went and watched the bobsled races. We had tickets to bobsled. And then, and then the U.S. was playing Canada in the hockey gold medal match. And we had to stake out this bar in Vancouver. And we had to get there at 7 a.m. The game was at 10, but we had to be there. They were opening early so that they could show the game. And it was me and my brother and my girlfriend, and we were the only Americans in this bar sitting there at this table by ourselves, just surrounded by rabid Canadian hockey fans just screaming. And the game was close. It went to overtime. And Sidney Crosby got this overtime goal and everybody's singing "Oh Canada" in the bars, totally packed out. And we're just kind of like, eventually people figured out we were American because we weren't cheering when the Canadians did good things. We also weren't cheering when the Americans did good things. We just kind of looked at each other like, yeah,
under the table fist pumps.
Yeah, like that was good. Okay, that was good.
Yeah, I mean, hockey is like, it seems like the right time for Americans and Canadians to be bashing each other's faces in.
Yes, that was a little bit more controlled, as controlled as hockey gets. And hockey is like, I think, the only sport, like the only team sport where you literally don't get in trouble for like punching the other player in the face in the middle of the point, right? Yeah. Like there's no, it's fine. You guys just both sit down for 5 minutes. It'll be fine.
I actually don't understand quite when there's like, okay, we're going to let them punch each other in the face for a few times, and then we're going to like, what's the line?
One of them genuinely falls down. Curious. When one guy hits the ice, they have to stop it. And if one guy is just really getting demolished and is clearly not trying to fight back, they can stop it.
Yeah, all right.
Otherwise, just go to town, man.
Well, let's keep it to the ice, hopefully.
Yes.
Because when you hear about this guy we're about to talk about, Leo Major, gonna realize like, we want these guys on our side.
Yeah. You know who's Canadian is Logan, like Wolverine. Although we associate Wolverine now with being an Australian guy, and Deadpool's Canadian, played by a Canadian guy, but in the comics, Wolverine is Canadian.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So who we're going to talk about today? Speaking of comics, we're going to talk about Leo Major, who is kind of the Canadian Nick Fury. He's a national hero in Canada, and he's a national hero in Holland, which might sound weird. All of this might sound weird, but we are going to get into it. We are going to talk about the one-man army, Sergeant Nick Fury of Canada, Leo Major, and the crazy exploits that he has fighting not only Germans in Normandy, but Germans in the Netherlands and also Chinese in Korea. So we're going to talk about possibly the most badass war hero in Canadian history. So stick with us, and after the break, we're going to get into it. Leo Major was born January 23rd, 1921 in Massachusetts, but his parents were both French Canadians, and he moved to Montreal before he was 1 year old. So he grew up in Montreal. He didn't get along super well with his dad, so he was raised by his aunt. And, we don't know a ton about his childhood, except that like at the age of 19, he decided he was done with all of this and he joined the Canadian Army.
Okay, now I gotta interrupt you though. Wait a minute. This is news to me. I didn't see where he was born. So is he dual citizenship?
I don't know. Probably, right? Because if you're born in the U.S., you are American citizen, right? Both his parents were French Canadian. He fought for the Canadian Army, but
this goes against everything we were just talking about. This is the unification of our countries in one man.
We can claim him. He's actually American, so never mind. Forget everything we said.
Oh, geez. We really messed this one up.
So he joins the Canadian Army in 1940, which is right around the beginning of World War II. So World War II has kind of already started. It started in 1939. It's looking like England is going to go to war, and the Commonwealth, by extension, which includes Canada, are going to go to war with Germany. He signs up to get in very early on in the war. He is as a French Canadian, he ends up in the a unit called and I hate pronouncing the French words, not because I hate the French language, but because I can't pronounce it correctly, and I feel it, and I cringe at my own pronunciation of Regiment de la Chaudière. But
that was Beautiful.
Yeah, I imagine people who actually speak the language cringe way more than I do. I know I'm doing it wrong, and so
sounded great to my ears. All right.
Okay, excellent. I'm not going to say the words again, so that's the limit of the French I'm going to use in this episode. So it's a reserve regiment of the Canadian Army, but they're called up. Everybody's called up when the war starts, and Leo Major, he does some training. He's getting ready to go. He goes across the Atlantic in a boat and ends up in England. And from there, he enters the war in 1944 as part of the Normandy landings. So he lands on Juno Beach, which is like a lot of people who write me and are like, you should write about my grandfather. He was a badass. He was in World War II. He landed at Normandy. And that's like enough. Like, that's fine. Yeah. Like, that's it. You landed at Normandy. That's badass, right? This is kind of where this guy's story begins, and it's going to get crazier and crazier from there. So he is at one of the contested beaches when he lands. And he, at this point, is, a 4-year veteran. He's well-trained. He's undoubtedly badass. But his specialty is scout sniper. So while he lands on the beach with the rest of the army, he starts to see some really interesting action during the Normandy campaign, because his job is to go out with one other guy, basically like a spotter, and they go out to reconnaissance German positions off the beachheads, which is extremely dangerous work. So after surviving Juno Beach, he starts to run these operations in early June, kind of scouting out where are the Germans and what are they up to. Well, one day he is traveling around and the two guys find a German half track. So you've probably seen these, and they're in all the movies, but it's like the two wheels in the front and then a tank tread in the back. There's a guy that drives it. There's a machine gunner, and then somewhere between like 8 and 10 Germans sitting in the back of it. It's like an open top thing, armored car. Yeah,
it's like a weird like military Nazi bus.
Yeah. It's an open top bus full of Nazis. It's armored. Yeah. It's bulletproof. It's got a heavy machine gun mounted on it, and it's loaded up with armed guys. And so Leo Major and his spotter, he's a lumberjack named Willie, lumberjack commando, which is extremely Canadian.
Yeah. I mean, that's fitting.
And so they're out there scouting enemy positions, and they see one of these half tracks roll by. And Leo Major, he's got a rifle, but he carries a Sten gun, which is like I don't know if you've seen these. They're like a submachine gun, but the magazine loads on the side, like it sticks out to the side. It's kind of a weird looking submachine gun, but that was the regular submachine gun for the English during the Second World War. He's got one of these. He's up against 10 guys in an armored vehicle with heavy machine guns. And so what does he do? He's like, let's get them. Let's get these guys. We got the drop on them.
Yeah.
So he ambushes this half track with grenades and his submachine gun and his rifle, and kills everybody on board, kills the entire bus full of Nazis.
Nice.
Steals the half track and then drives it back towards Canadian lines, and like almost gets shot as he's approaching, because the Canadian front line is there and they see this German half track rolling up on him, and like he's kind of driving it and standing up and like waving a flag like, hey, don't shoot. I stole this thing. Me and my buddy stole this thing by ourselves from 10 guys with guns. And it worked out great, because the back of that half track was full of German communications equipment that was broadcasting like reports from German positions, and it was like very valuable. This guy his job was to reconnaissance enemy positions, and he stole their radio so he could listen to what they were doing.
Yeah, that's a little known fact in war. Knowing exactly what the enemies are doing and listening into their communications probably gives you a pretty solid advantage.
Yeah, it's like when Bruce Willis steals the radio off that guy in Die Hard.
Yeah, exactly.
Doing, you know?
Yes.
It's good. Okay, so he continues to do these missions, and he's fighting regular German infantry here, but he also is going up against the SS, right? The SS, the Waffen-SS is the elite of the German military, and they're at Normandy, and he runs into some of these guys. And at one point, he encounters the SS, and he's like, well, we got to get these guys. They're armed. They're doing a patrol, and he does exactly what he did with the half-track before. He jumps out of the bushes and he hoses him down with a submachine gun, and he kills all 4 of these guys. But as the 4th guy is going down, he pulls a phosphorus grenade, which is like an incendiary, like a fire grenade, and throws it at Leo Majors, and it blows up in his face and burns him very severely.
Yeah, and that you would think for most people that would be the end of his that would be the end of his story, right? Grenade to the face.
Right. And on the surface, that's badass story, right? Like, oh, he landed at Juno Beach, he took out this half-track all by himself, stole a German half-track, jumped this SS patrol all by himself, killed 4 SS guys, then got blown up with a phosphorus grenade and lived. He's very severely burned on the right eye. He loses his vision there. He's permanently blinded to the point where he has to wear an eye patch, which he's just like, yeah, I kind of look like a pirate. He's doing the interview. He's like, yeah, I look like a pirate. Well, I'm just kind of running around with my Canadian military uniform. Like, I picture Nick Fury. I don't know, like...
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's just be clear here, though. Like, adding an eye patch to literally anyone increases their badassitude exponentially. Like, it just... anyone. Imagine if like the president of the United States had an eye patch. You'd be like, whoa, that's serious, right? Like, given anyone an eye, when Thor in one of those Avengers movies, he has an eye patch, right? Yep. He looks that much more badass. Yep. If I ever lost an eye, I'm 100% going with an eye patch, because I mean, people, that's serious stuff. You don't want the glass eyeball. Just say it. Go with the eye patch. That's badass. Sweet, it's possibly the most badass like accessory. Yeah. Clothing accessory. Is it clothing? Clothing accessory you can possibly have.
Scout, sniper, Canadian lumberjack, commando. Yeah. Pirate.
Yeah.
So now he's wearing an eye patch, and that's pretty cool. And they're like, well, you're done. The war's over. You're a sniper and you're a scout. Your job is to recon enemy positions. You kind of need 2 eyes for that. He's like, nah, I'm good. I got 1 eye, and that's all I need to look down the scope. So I think I'm good. I think we're good. I'm not leaving.
Can't argue with that.
Okay. So great. He stays. He declines medical evac. He could go home. The work could be over for him, but he says no. He stays, and he continues fighting through the Normandy campaign. Recovers from his wounds, goes back into service, and we see him again later on in 1944. He's back out with Corporal Willie. Willie is his superior officer, so Leo Major is a private, and will remain a private for most of his career. So he is like the number 2 guy in this scout sniper team. So the corporal and him go out to scout in enemy position. They're outside. They're along the Scheldt River in the Netherlands at this point, and there was a group of Canadian troops that had gone out on a recon mission and didn't come back. So Leo Major and Corporal Willie, his name is Wilfred Arsenault. Arsenault and Major, they go to the town to investigate what's going on. At some point, and details of this are a little bit weird, but at some point, Leo and Wilfred, they find a German sentry post where the Germans have fallen asleep. And they capture them, and they get a white flag. They make those guys get a white flag and go tell another group of Germans that they've surrendered. And it's kind of the Mad Jack Churchill with the sword, walking around from post to post, being like, "You're my prisoner now." They kind of do this with the town, and they start to walk around this town. and they keep finding these little patrols of guys, and it's just 2 Canadian soldiers, but they're starting to get this bigger and bigger group of German prisoners, and they'll show up at like an area and they'll be like, hey, you guys fall in here, like you're under arrest, like you're our prisoner now.
Just we need to try that more in war. Just be like, guys, you surrendered.
Yeah, you're done. War's over for you.
You're done. War's over. You didn't hear? You could just put down your weapons. Come on over here. People are like, all right.
So that's it. They go around from post to post with this crew of prisoners, jamming a rifle in people's face, be like, "You're with us now. You're a prisoner." And one thing that's helping Leo Wilford here is that like these Germans on garrison duty in the Netherlands in late 1944, they don't want to be there. A lot of these guys are not excited about having to fight the Allied military the next morning. They're looking for an opportunity to get out of there. So when he's like, hey, do you guys want to surrender? They're like, yes, we want to surrender. We would love to go home. We would love to like not be in this war anymore. The Germans have been fighting for a long time. The war is turning against them. The Normandy landings have been a success. The Allies are pushing towards Germany. The Russians on the other side of the country or other side of Europe are pushing towards Germany. Things are looking bad. This is after, some of German high command had already gone to their leader and been like, hey, we need to surrender. We're going to lose. Like, we've already lost. And I think that mentality has trickled down to some of the soldiers here, because here's one thing that we're going to come across with Leo Major and some of these crazy stories that we're about to tell is that, like, you should know that there are some people are like,
yeah.
Some people are like, this can't be true.
Yeah.
These stories are too crazy. How can one person capture 93 German prisoners in one battle without firing a shot?
Maybe some a little bit of mythologizing here.
There is some of that. As with most badasses we write about, if you are going to scan like the Wikipedia entry for them, there is an entire section on like, maybe this didn't happen. So yeah. For the purposes of this podcast, I guess I should have prefaced this earlier, but for the purposes of this podcast, I am going to use his own words, the words of his son, the book that was written about him, the newspaper articles that were written about him in Canada and Holland, and the official citations from both militaries for his awards for bravery. That's the primary source material I'm going to use. But you should be aware that 5 years ago, a guy that never met him wrote a paper that was like, maybe this didn't happen. That exists. Well,
I mean, we've come across this in other sort of other episodes where there might be like different versions of a story. And I think the way we sort of talked about it is like, listen, when there's 2 versions of a story, we are going to go with the more badass version. Yeah. Because that is what we're about. That's what we're excited about. And we recognize that there can be other, potentially versions of this story, but that's not the story we're telling today. But
it was a great one because like there's a guy who was just like, so what happens at this battle is Leo Major and Wilfred Arsenault capture 100 Germans by themselves, mostly without firing a shot. So the counter argument to this is that like 100 prisoners is a lot for one guy to capture. That's true, but these guys wanted to surrender, so maybe that helped. Anyway, these 2 guys are marching 100 POWs back to Canadian lines. And remember, I told you that the SS was hanging around. They're hanging around in the Netherlands too, and the SS is seeing all of these Germans walking back to allow themselves to be prisoners, and the SS opens fire on the Germans for like being traitors and kills 7 of them. So of the 100 he captured, he brings 93 back because they were killed by their own people.
SS are real dicks.
Yeah.
Bunch of Nazis.
So this damn Nazis, Okay. They recommend Leo Major for the Distinguished Conduct Medal, which is we call it Distinguished Service Order in the U.S., but it's like the second highest medal for bravery. It's just below the Victoria Cross because this guy captured all these people. And Leo Major declines it. He's like, no, I don't need that.
I'm good.
Yeah. Just did what he does. He says the badass thing that all badass say. No, anybody else would have done that in my position.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, great. So that is not the story for which Leo Major is the most famous.
Well, but hold on. Before we move on, from what I read, the reason why he declined it. Do you recall?
Yes, because he didn't want to receive a medal from Commonwealth Commander Bernard Montgomery because he didn't think Montgomery was doing a very good job of prosecuting the attack. And he was like, that guy doesn't know what he's talking about. I don't need any medal that he recommends me for. Which is pretty baller to like say against the overall commander of the army when you're a private.
Yeah, he's a private and he's like, nah, that general, I'm not taking any award from him. That guy is unfit. He doesn't know what the hell he's doing. I'm just going to say it takes a certain type of badass attitude to do that. I think it speaks to Leo Major, what he's done so far and what he's going to do.
Mm-hmm.
Leo is not a normal guy.
He's not a normal guy.
That. He's a character. He's a character. That's for sure. He's a one-man wrecking ball.
Yeah, he's got a big personality. You see interviews with him, and he's just got a big personality, and I think that helps. We were talking about the mythology aspect of it, but like he is he is the kind of person that generates that sort of mythology because he's just got this huge personality. He's this very outgoing, and
he's definitely the guy like in any movie where like the captain is yelling at him, you're out of line. you're out of line. yeah. You're writing checks your body can't cash or whatever. Yep. Yeah, he's that guy who's going to defy orders, but he does it in such a heroic way that it works out for him.
Exactly. But if he had less success, then maybe he would have been in more trouble. I mean, it's telling that he's landed at Juno Beach. He's single-handedly captured a German half-track. He has now single-handedly captured. He takes out that SS patrol, getting blown up in the face at the process. Continues to go back into war as a scout sniper, blinded with an eye patch on one eye. And then in that condition, captures 93 German prisoners of war in a single battle. And he's still a private. He hasn't been promoted to corporal.
Exactly. Yeah. Normally you get a promotion for that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But Private Leo Major's still got some cards up his sleeve. So let's keep going.
Yes. Okay. So he continues on, and he's still stationed in his regiment is still stationed in Holland. And so he continues on, and in April of 1945, he finds himself outside the German-occupied town of Zwolle, which is in Holland. Zwolle has a group of Germans of indeterminate number inside the city, but it is also an enclave for the Dutch resistance. And the Dutch resistance is a very powerful movement at this point. They're gaining a lot of, they've been operating behind enemy lines, and now they're kind of feeling like liberation is coming, and they're all, a lot of the Dutch resistance is getting motivated, and they're sending out notes to the Canadian lines, the Commonwealth lines, like, hey, we're gonna, the town is ready to be taken. Like we're ready for you guys. We'll rise up when you come. Okay, so Leo Major and Corporal Wilfred Arsenault, they are still a team. And now they are going to do their scout sniper recon thing for Zwolle, see what's there, see what's going on. And while they are patrolling the city, it's like dusk. The sun is setting, and they are patrolling the city, trying to see what's going on. They get caught out by a concealed German machine gun position that opens fire on them, and Corporal Arsenault is hit and killed. Leo Major, he goes into...
he doesn't take that well.
He doesn't take that well. Yes. He goes into a blood rage. He takes out the German machine gun position. And then, like you said, there's a variety of stories about this, because the only person who witnessed it was Leo Major himself. There are no other there's no conflicting reports here because nobody else was there because it was just Leo Major. And the story goes that he threw 3 machine guns he took the German machine gun, he put his SMG on his back, he put his buddy's SMG on his back, he grabbed another one. He's got 3 machine guns, he's got a bag full of grenades, he's got his handgun, he's got knives. He just gears up like Rambo going into, or like the Commando going into, like Schwarzenegger at the end of Commando going into the base. Gears up.
And remember, he has an eye patch.
With the eye patch on in the Canadian Army uniform, World War II stuff. I always picture a beret. I don't know why. But he has the gearing up montage and he goes into Zvol. And exactly what happens while he's in there is unknown, except the story goes that he was just killing every German he could get his hands on. He's firing his machine guns. He's throwing grenades. The headquarters of the Gestapo catches on fire and burns to the ground. There's a story that he kicks in in the front door to an SS officers club and hoses the place down and kills everybody. We did our thing on the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, where they go into that base at the beginning and they just wipe everybody out. I'm picturing that level,
it's that, except one guy,
except it's one dude.
Yeah.
And,
I want to believe. I want to believe that's what happened.
What we know for sure is that Corporal Arsenault is killed. Leo Major enters the city of Zvol, and the next day he walks out of it. The Gestapo headquarters is burned to the ground. Many of the German buildings are blown up or burned to the ground, and there are no more Germans in Zvol. It is again completely liberated single-handedly by Leo Major and perhaps some members of the Dutch resistance that came up and helped him as well. But the story goes that Leo Major enters Zvol, kills every German, and the remaining Germans. There's estimates are all over the place, but according to the distinguished or to his citation and stuff, there's hundreds of Germans in the city. He's blowing up stuff and killing so many Germans that they think they're under attack by a much larger force. German morale is already bad, and they break and they run out of town, driven out by one man, one angry eye patch Canadian. Just pretty badass.
That's incredibly badass. You just liberated a whole town by himself. He gets nominated for the DCM again. He gets it this time. He accepts it because he's like, well, I guess after all this, I probably earned at least one of these. And he becomes this huge hero in the city. To this day, there's a street named after him in Zvol. They teach his story in schools there. He went back at some point after the war was over, and they had these huge parades for him. He's like a superhero there because he is credited for single-handedly saving the city or liberating the city from a battalion of Nazis. Yeah. So
the war ends for him a short while after liberating Zvol, because he's driving in an APC and it goes over a mine and it blows up and it breaks his back in several places. Leo Major, being Leo Major, doesn't accept it, declines another discharge, goes back into he's recuperating in the hospital for a long time. He needs surgeries on his back. He still can't see out of the one eye, but he does come back to formation before the war's over. So not only does this not exit him from World War II, he stays in the army after World War II is over. Survives the war.
As a private?
He gets promoted to, I think, corporal. He ends the war as a corporal, which is one rank above private.
Okay. They're like, I guess we got to do it now.
We got to do something, right? Okay. So, he's like corporal major, and major is a different rank, right? So it's always funny when you read about private major. Okay, so Leo Major, he gets the Distinguished Service Cross. He gets blown up, but he survives. He stays in the Canadian Army, and the Canadian Army goes back to war in 1950 as part of the Korean War. So when the United Nations forces are fighting against North Korea on the Korean Peninsula, Leo Major is sent with the Canadian contingent. Same thing, scout sniper. He's, fairly elite at this point. He is part of the first Commonwealth Division in Korea. And so he ends up finding himself in the middle of another battle. So he is not done yet with his actions, getting his back broken in several places and like fractured spine, blinded in one eye, surviving all of these crazy experiences that he's had. He's back in action in November of 1951 in this, a lot of the Korean conflict battles are involving positionings over high ground. So he is at the Battle of Hill 355. So Hill 355 was held by the 3rd American U.S. Army Division, and they were attacked and overrun by a huge force of Chinese soldiers. So 2 divisions of Chinese infantry overrun the 3rd Division. The Americans have to fall back, and the hill is now being held by the Chinese. Okay.
Not great.
Yeah. So we need to take this back. Okay. So the Canadians are going to lead an attack to the front. By this point, we've moved from Hill 355 to Hill 227. They're close to each other. I don't know how they number these things, and it makes study of the Korean War difficult because a lot of these battles are battles over hills with 3 numbers. But the main position now, the main Chinese position, is at Hill 227, and the Canadians are going to attack from the front, and they want to send Leo Major and his guys up around the back to scout out the position, do some sniper fire, support the attack, right? So these guys are going to go up, they're going to sneak around the Chinese positions. They're going to climb up the back end of the hill, and they're going to start sniper fire on the back of the Chinese position while the main Canadian army attacks from the front. Okay, great. Leo Major decides that what he wants to do here is he has all of his guys trade out their combat boots for tennis shoes so they don't make so much noise when they're sneaking around.
Okay. And
so it's Leo Major and 20 guys. He's wearing tennis shoes and an eye patch. And he sneaks up on the back end of this hill. And when he gets up there, it's like 1 o'clock in the morning, and he finds that the Chinese have been doing some kind of rotational shift, and they don't have as many guys up there as he thought they would. And so he's like, well, I think we can take these guys. Let's just get them here, and we can take the hill before they can reinforce these guys.
Now, I just got to ask before going back, because I was just thinking, I'm like, wait, where the heck these guys are all carrying around tennis shoes? Why are they're all in combat boots, but they're also carrying around tennis shoes?
I probably procured them from somewhere, right?
But also, they changed it to tennis shoes so they could sneak up on these guys. Is that why they're called sneakers? I don't know. I've never bothered to look up, why tennis shoes might be called sneakers. We know why they might be called tennis shoes.
Yeah.
Dudes are playing tennis in them. Now they're sneaking in them. Something to think about.
Yes.
Something to Google and figure out and prove me wrong.
Yes.
Can take that up later.
Okay. All right. So he sneaks up around the back end with 20 guys, right? It's him and 19 other French Canadians. They sneak up, they attack the Chinese, because not only are they undermanned, but they're not prepared for an attack from the rear. So he attacks them, drives them off or kills them, takes the hill, then sends note like, hey, we've got the hill. But the Chinese survivors tell their guys they've lost the hill also. So Leo Major and the Canadians, they attack, they take the position, and then they are immediately counterattacked by 2 divisions of Chinese infantry, which is tens of thousands of soldiers. So they're immediately counterattacked. He takes the position. He's got to dig trenches. He's got to hold out until those reinforcements can get to him. And now he finds himself in this 3-day battle with the entire Chinese army. And he's on the radio calling in airstrikes and mortar and artillery. And they say that when they were talking to one of the people that was one of the mortar teams, the guy was like, yeah, I was a little nervous because this Leo Major's guy is radioing me in coordinates for where to put my mortars. And as he's talking to me on the radio, I can hear my mortars exploding right next to him. It's very rare for me to hear the sound of the mortar explosion
through
the radio of the guy telling me where to put the mortars. Because it's not that accurate.
Yeah, that's that's awfully close.
Yes. So the Chinese counterattack him. He gets a little bit of reinforcements, but he's kind of in the middle of this battle for Hill 227 for 3 days and nights, and the Canadians are fighting for their lives against basically, a humongously a Chinese force that outnumbers them humongously. And despite all understanding of force superiority and strength and all that, Leo Majors himself is a force multiplier, and the Canadians pulled out until
for sure.
They can get more reinforcements from the Americans, and the rest of the Commonwealth troops can come up and take the position. But Leo Major is credited with kind of taking that critical hill with a surprise attack and then holding it for 3 days at the risk of his own life multiple times.
I love that you describe him as a force multiplier. Just like one dude. He's like, there are certain people who all of a sudden guarantee you force superiority.
Yes. He's a corporal, but he acts like a Space Marine captain on the tabletop.
he powers up all the people around him,
yeah, exactly. I think about I don't know if you ever played Dynasty Warriors, where there's this huge army and you run in there with one guy and you take one swing with your sword and 50 guys go flying up in the air. That's kind of how I picture him in combat.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah.
So he ends up getting the Distinguished Conduct Medal again for his actions defending this hill against an overwhelming enemy force. So he becomes not only the only Canadian to receive this medal 2 times, but he becomes the only soldier from the entire Commonwealth to receive it for 2 different wars.
Well,
which is pretty cool.
That sounds about right when you talk about Leo Major.
Yes. So yeah, that's it.
That's it. Then he goes home.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. I think Lee Majors, right? I might have called him Leo Majors at some point. But because I'm thinking of Lee Majors.
It's funny. I was looking at his Wikipedia and I'm like, I want to know, I'm sure you can find out more about his post-war life, but this is the type of guy where you kind of feel like his candle burns so brightly that it's going to burn out quickly. No. He only died in 2008.
Yeah, that's it. So he born 1921, joins the army at age 19, because World War II is starting and he wants to be part of it. He goes over there, lands at Juno Beach, captures a German half-track by himself, drives it back to the Allied lines, takes out a squad of SS, but they blow his eye off, has to wear an eye patch. Then goes into the Battle of the Scheldt, captures 100 German prisoners single-handedly, continues on, goes to Zwolle, single-handedly liberates the town of Zwolle from German occupation, gets blown up by a landmine, survives that with a broken back, but stays in the army, goes to the Korean conflict, fights an entire division of Chinese infantry all by himself, basically, captures a position and holds it for 3 days, calling down artillery on top of his own head, survives that conflict, goes back home, is married for 57 years, and starts making
survives that conflict.
Makes
57 years is incredible.
Yeah, and then he and his wife Pauline, they start making fairly regular trips to Zwolle after the war is over, because they they love him there, and they always invite him. You're always welcome here, and he never has to pay for a drink when he goes there. So he goes back there fairly regularly, where he's a celebrity because he's.
I certainly would.
Yeah, absolutely. Name a street after me in a town, I'll go visit it every once in a while. And that's it. They put him on a Canadian postage stamp in 2020. They're referring to him as the one-eyed ghost, which is kind of cool.
Sweet. Yeah.
Lives to be 87 years old with a broken back and having caught an incendiary grenade in the face. Died in 2008. Lived most of his life in Quebec. That's Leo Major. 2-time Distinguished Conduct Medal recipient. He had 4 kids, a bunch of grandkids. Yeah.
Canadian war hero and true badass.
Exactly. So that's the story. You want to know if Canadians can be badass? The answer is yes.
Yes, they certainly can, and we love them for it.
Yes.
So, all right. Well, this was fun.
Yeah, this was really fun. This is a good story, and I like talking about this one. This one's always just... I love that, you know, they waited till he was dead before that guy wrote the book about, like, maybe this didn't always happen. Maybe it didn't happen.
You definitely wait till he's gone. Yeah.
But I like that the argument against him is like, no way, that's too crazy. There's no way one person could have done all that stuff. I don't have a lot of corroborating evidence, but it seems impossible, right? How would one person capture 100 guys? You can't do that, right?
Not for Leo Major.
Yeah, if anybody could have done it, I think it might have been him. All right, that's our story for today. Thank you, Andrew, for being here, and thanks to all of you for listening. We love doing these, and we're looking forward to doing more in the future. So stick with us, and we will see you next week with another badass.
Stay badass.
Badass of the Week is produced by High Five Content. Executive producers are me, Ben Thompson, Dr. Patricia Larish, and Andrew Jacobs. Writing is by me and Pat. Story editing by Ian Jacobs. Mixing and music and sound design by Jude Brewer. Special thanks to Noel Brown at iHeartRadio. Badass of the Week is based on my website, badassoftheweek.com, where you can read all sorts of stories about other badasses. If you want to reach out with questions or ideas, you can email us at badasspodcast@badassoftheweek.com. If you like this podcast, please subscribe, follow, listen, and tell your friends and tell your enemies. And please leave us a rating. We'll be back next week with another one.